Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the What's He On About Cricket podcast. This is an unleash of all my Ashes thoughts. You might think it's a prediction, but I'd say it's just more me giving you 30 minutes of Ashes waffle. But it's not waffle, it's got genuine thought analysis. It's everything I've been thinking about over the last few weeks. So I spent about 30 minutes drawing a big mind map in green ink on an iPad. So hopefully you can imagine a little bubble in the middle with all my Ashes thoughts and several little stalks coming off of it. We've got the toss to talk through, which might sound a little bit simple, but I promise you there's a little bit going on there. Little look at the England warm up and the pitch we're going to expect in Perth. It's all over the shop at the minute with Aussie bowlers falling out here, there, and everywhere. We're going to have a look at the lineups. That's also important about the Aussie bowlers. Any key matchups to look for, pressure on certain players, and also I'm going to give you the perfect, the one and only combined 11 that you need. Then finally, I will end with a prediction. I hope it's recording. The camera says it's recording, so we're going to go with it. This is episode I don't know of the What's He On About Cricket podcast, and it's my Ashes thoughts. Let's start with the toss then. Last five games at the Perth Stadium. Well, all five games that's ever been in that ground. The team won batting first. Every single game that's been at the Perth ground, the team that has won the toss bats and wins. Okay, so Australia will 100% bat first. It's in their DNA. They like to think they're still the good old Aussies. They go out and they have to bat. Whatever the conditions, they have to bat. But I don't think England will do the same. We saw it in their warm up, which we are going to come on to in a moment. But despite the only team winning that bats first in Perth, I don't think Stokes is going to do that. Stokes has said openly, we're going to have a bowl because we like to chase. So even if it's a road, and I've seen some pictures of this Perth Stadium pitch, and it looks a belter. But in recent years, the conditions in Australia have been nippy. They've been great for the fast bowler. All right, it's not been easy to bat. I'm not saying there's going to be a road. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying whatever the pitch throws at England, if they win the toss, they are going to bowl first. And it happened in the warm-up match just the other day. So we're going to move on to that warm-up match. Anything we picked out, yes, Ollie poked in the runs, but is he really? Is what I'm saying. But first thing I'm going to say is there's a lot of talk that this preparation wasn't enough. White ball series in New Zealand, three T20s, three ODIs for England wasn't enough to then just play one warm-up game against the England Lions, their second team, 1 week out of the Ashes. And it's a three-dayer. Okay. I disagree that that's not enough preparation. There's so many ex-pros, ex-legends saying that that's not enough preparation. Back in the day, England used to go and spend, I don't know, 3 months preparing, playing all the state teams twice or something ridiculous. And there is this ethos amongst the new England coaching and captaining department that they don't need to play as many games to be in form. I don't entirely agree with that, and I'm sure that's not what they think as well. But again, a little bit of a tangent here. The main thing is, I don't think this wasn't enough preparation because it brings me back to the 2019 Ashes in England, and Australia played a game at the then a GS Bowl, now Utilita Bowl, against each other. Australia versus essentially the second team. And it was a battle. It was a battle in Southampton. And they went hard at each other. They wanted to win. They wanted their place in the squad. It was the pre-Ashes squad, which played almost an intra-squad tournament against each other. And then the squad was selected from that. And all the Aussie players loved how much of a battle it was. And I think it was something similar for England. On day one of the England Lions warm-up game, I was a little bit worried. I saw Jacob Bethel get out pulling Ben Stokes and getting out caught on the boundary, which could happen so many times in this England series. It's all good throwing predictions around, but if England just get caught hitting pull shots to deep backward square leg every single test match, it could be a short series. But It was not. It was not a laughing matter, I don't think. Ben Stokes won the toss. Well, it wasn't even, it was uncontested. They chose to bowl. And from my point of view, it looked like they picked the 11 for England that was going to win the match in 3 days at Lilac Hill, not the team that was going to play in the first test, not the team that England wanted to put a balance on each side. I think England and Stokes got the ability to choose an 11 that was going to win that game. And then everyone else just played for the England Lions. So they played four seamers plus Ben Stokes, Atkinson, Tongue, Archer, and Wood. And it looked like they just wanted to win the game. And they did that. Yes, England Lions declared to make a game of it, but still, England chased 234 overs in the evening of day three to win the game. It was quite an interesting kind of scenario, really. And England obviously had said to the England Lions, look, we're going to declare you when we think it's a competitive total to chase in the time we've got left, and we're going to go for it. And Ben Duckett, the opener, got the golden duck. And they still went for it. Pope got 60 ball 90. Stokes got some runs. And England breezed over the line in the end. So I thought it was a really interesting game to watch as an England fan. I didn't watch a huge amount of it, but I just thought it was a really interesting dynamic. And maybe a lot of people saying it's not enough preparation, they're taking it too much as a joke, or Ben Stokes taking 6 wickets of bouncers and Lions batters getting caught out on hooking on the boundary. But England won in 3 days. They wanted a little taste of a win. It's very reminding me of the 2019 Australia moment where they did something very similar. And to be honest, I love that they bowled and they tried to win the game in 3 days. I thought it was a brilliant little warm up for England there. Just before we move on, Ollie Pope. I think Ollie Pope's class. I never want to go too hard on an England player. He's brilliant. He also, though, has a knack of getting runs not when England really need him to. I mean, it's classic, isn't it? This lad is so unlucky because everyone kind of thinks Jacob Bethel is this prodigy, and when he's out of the side, he's better than Joe Root in everyone's eyes. But Ollie Pope, I think we've all just got to accept that Ollie Pope is our number three. You know, whether you like it or not, just because Jacob Bethel is this young, talented England cricketer that everyone thinks is an absolute jet, all right, it makes us all think that Ollie Pope isn't very good. I was about to say, and I think I ended up did saying, if that's English, that Ollie Pope doesn't really get hundreds when England need him to, and that's not the truth. It's just how it feels. You know, Ollie Pope got a big 100 against Zimbabwe before the India series, but then he did get 100 in that first test, and then he went slightly silent for the rest of it. Can I see something similar happening against Australia? Absolutely. Pope, lots of runs in the warm up, runs in the first test, and then kind of decreases his amount of runs through the series. I can see that happening. But I'm going to scrap all that and I'm just going to say Ollie Pope is our best number three. And Jonathan Trott came out on the, I think, Love of Cricket podcast with Stuart Broad and Joss Butler. Jonathan Trott came out and said, to win the Ashes Down Under, you need a settled team. And the one thing that people inside the England camp has said about this top seven is how settled it is. I want to see Pope play at least 3 tests. He's got 190 odd runs in the warm up. I think he's almost earned the right to play five. But it's a settled top seven. I really don't think England are going to switch around the batters too much in the series. I wouldn't be surprised if he'll play all 5 tests. But Ollie Pope's our number three. And I think the England fandom has got to deal with that. Whether they like it or not, I like it because Ollie Pope's gun when he wants to be. It's just, I'd love to see him get a big 100 in a deciding match. I know that's a big ask. And look at us here, maybe just asking Ollie Pope to just go a step further, score us 100 in a big game. It's a big ask. But if Ollie Pope's going to be a settled number three for the future, he's got to score big moments, hundreds, doesn't he? And just before we move on to the pitch of the warm-up, Ollie Pope is one of, including Zach Crawley as well, who've both been put on 1 year contracts. A lot of the England setup, a lot of the England batters are on 2-year contracts. Duckett, Root, Brooke, Stokes, Smith, pretty sure all on 2-year contracts. All of them. Whereas Crawley, not because of age, not because of anything else, Crawley and Pope are on 1-year contracts, suggesting it's coming to the end of a cycle. We're getting to the Ashes, which is normally a little bit of a mix-up point if England don't do well. And the pressure's on them both because if Crawley, who's been bigged up to be this great batter in Australia, if Crawley and Pope come in and don't score runs, I think England will be shifting them aside. I think it's a moment that will be a rebuild moment. If England lose the Ashes and Pope and Crawley don't get many runs, I think it'll be a moving on moment for them. So that's really interesting. Just in the warm up, well, not in the warm up, in the contracts department, that's a really interesting thought. So big pressure on Pope and Crawley. Now, the pitch for the first test. Quick chat about the pitch for the warm-up whilst we're on it. Lilac Hill in Perth was slow. I don't know if Australia put the England warm-up on this pitch, but it was slow and it didn't really bounce. And it was just the absolute polar opposite of the Perth Stadium pitch that's going to come out. It's going to be bouncy, it's going to be rapid, it could even nip around. But it looked, from a watcher's perspective, Lilac Hill looked like a pudding. It looked like an absolute pudding. I remember picking up that Bethel, when he got out pulling out towards a deep backward square leg, Joe Root at first slip was seen doing a motion with his hand, almost to suggest that the ball's bouncing, slowing up, and just dipping on the batter. Which is, as I said, the complete opposite of what we're going to see at Perth. And it's really interesting in looking back at Pope's runs of 190. I know I'm chatting so much about Ollie Pope here, about maybe downgrading him a little bit, but I'm not. All right. He's 190 runs on Lilac Hill, putting you in form for the Perth Stadium. Do you see what I mean? I worry that this England warm-up, however much of a good experience it was for both sides, battling it out, no Aussie warm-up side of just 11 club cricketers going up against England, but an actual decent game on a pudding of a surface does worry me slightly. But let's talk about the Perth pitch then. How will it play in the first test? Now, traditionally, Australia, pitches last 5 days, long, big batting innings, need to score 400, 500 in the first innings. That's not the case anymore. India won the first test last year in the Border Gavaskar Trophy, scoring 150 in the first knock. Then Australia went and scored 100 in reply with a deficit of 50 runs. So that is the more recent conditions. A lot of nip, a lot of bowler-friendly conditions, green surfaces. It's happening in the Sheffield Shield as well. You're getting great bowling conditions for the Ashes. Now, here's my thought, as I've been thinking recently about my Ashes thoughts. We're onto the pitch now. There's no Cummins or Hazelwood in the team. And Mark Wood's fit. Jofra Archer's fit. And where there used to be a big gulf between the Australian pace bowling department and the England pace bowling department, that seemed like the idea, didn't it? We're going to produce a great green top for our Australian legends, and the England bowling department isn't that good, and Bazball batters hate the green tops. That is the idea. And if Cummins and Hazelwood were fit, I would be 100% sure on what pitch we're going to see. We're going to see a big nibbler that's going to do all sorts, and the Pacers are going to have the time of their lives. Okay, not forgetting Mitchell Stark is still there, who's asked recently for bowler-friendly conditions. But now the main gulf between the two sides is in the spin bowling department, which is starting to make me think that Australia and their groundsmen, their conditions, could now be used to essentially exaggerate how much of that difference between Lyon and Bashir there is. Yes, the pace bowling departments are now looking a little bit more similar, but Australia's spin in Nathan Lyon is leagues better than Bashir. And especially if England like to bowl first and Australia like to bat first, Australia can be pretty easily convinced they'll be bowling in the fourth innings. And I don't know if all it takes a little bit less water to produce a dry pitch. Maybe it'll still nip around early doors because that's what Aussie conditions have been like recently. I'm not sure how much you can change that. But Nathan Lyon bowling in the fourth innings with Hazelwood and Cummins out injured, surely they'd have to be silly not to produce some kind of degrading turning pitch in Perth and maybe beyond. Probably not for the pink ball day night test, which isn't really known for its spin. But Nathan Lyon's got a great record at the Perth Stadium. Yes, he hasn't bowled much there recently because of how pace bowler friendly it's been. But who's to say Australia won't produce a rank turner? I know they don't have that ability, but just a bit of degradation for the fourth, fifth day, for the fourth test when they know England are going to bat. Lyon could be the difference. Lineups then. Australia 11, England 11. Here we go. We're going to pick it together. I don't know how much you say you have in it, considering you're just a listener, but it's my 11 on each side. Okay, there's a few big talking points. We're going to talk about the matchups, but here we go. Number one for Australia, Khawaja and Weatherald are going to open the batting, in my opinion. They wouldn't have brought Weatherald in if they weren't going to play him. Okay, this is when I released the podcast just as Australia released their lineup with Cameron Green batting at 3 and Labuschagne opening. I don't think that'll happen. Labuschagne, for me, straight back into the 11. Number 3, he's gone away, he's worked hard, and I think he's coming back a new player, and is genuinely, as an Englishman, probably one of my biggest worries is Marnus Labuschagne. But Steve Smith at number 4, we're going to talk about his matchup with Joe Root very soon, and then Travis Head is going to be a key focal part at number 5. Now, on both sides, the middle order is going to be the key. In Australia, in recent months, recent years, openers and number 3 have fallen early. Okay, it's almost a dying art, the genuine number 3, because of how impossible some of the conditions they're having to face is. And I don't think the top 3 on either side are elite enough to deal with the Aussie conditions. So I think it will be down to, firstly, how long those top 3 can last and protect the middle order from coming in, and then how well the middle order can bat. So that's 4, Smith, 5, Head, 6, despite Bo Webster taking a fifer in the game the other day in the Sheffield Shield. He's out, despite having an unbelievable record for Australia in the last few tests. I mean, if Australia do drop him, which I'm planning to, he's done nothing wrong. The poor bloke is spotless in his career so far. Cameron Green's though, he's in at number 6. He's got a couple of runs in the Sheffield Shield. He's not out of form. I'm sure he'll be able to bowl a little bit for Australia. And I also think that despite Webster getting 5 wickets in the game the other day for the Sheffield Shield, I think it was for New South Wales against South Australia. But Cameron Green feels like a more potent bowling option. If he's completely firing fit, ready to go, they might pick Webster based on the fact they just want to be convinced that someone's going to stay not injured whilst the rest of the Aussie bowling lineup falls around him. But Cameron Green's in at number 6 for me. Carey, number 7, pretty much a shoo-in. And then with no Cummins and Hazelwood, it looks like this. Stark, Lyon, Boland, and probably Brendan Doggett, who has been, as we've said in recent shows, in and out of that Australian Test squad, never to make his debut. But in his 2 games in the Sheffield Shield this year, he's taken 13 wickets at an average of 14.5. So it's pretty impressive, and I think he'll waltz his way into this Aussie side and could do pretty well in the first test. England then. At number 1, Zach Crawley to take the first ball, which is very unlikely considering England want to bowl and Australia probably want to bat. But Zach Crawley is at number 1. Ben Duckett alongside him, very, very predicted. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Pope, Root, Brooke, Stokes, Smith. I think everyone accepts that. Everyone knows that. That's what's so beautiful about having a settled top 7. But the questions remain on the pace attack. I think it's pretty straightforward. We're going to see Atkinson, Jofra Archer, and Mark Wood for the first test. A lot of questions are rising about, you play Jofra and Archer and Mark Wood in the same side. Mark Wood's just been cleared to play the first test. Is this right? We've got a lad who's injured and probably our biggest pace frontline seam attack bowler. I think he's got to play, to be honest. Too many times have England been sceptical about some of their bowlers for the first test in Australia, been pumped, and then gone on to lose the series. Let's go all out to win the first test, is what I say. Now, number 11, the big question. Is it Bashir or is it Josh Tongue? Now, a few weeks ago, I said Josh Tongue. Josh Tongue will take the wickets. Josh Tongue has the ability to take a wicket out of nowhere. Yes, Bashir also has that ability, but Tongue, just for me, when push comes to shove, he is the one player I feel that could get Smith out on 70. When Smith's seeing it that well, for some reason I think Josh Tongue could just take his wicket on 75 when he's in great nick. And we've never had a bowler to be able to do that. That's the pros of having Josh Tongue. Yes, he sprays it around. So does Bashir. Okay, Bashir, if not slightly more so sometimes. And what really confused me about Bashir, okay, is that England have bigged him up to be this guy who's going to be good in Australia. So who in their right mind thinks England aren't going to play Bashir? Well, it's incredibly possible. You know, maybe in the pink ball test he might not play. Maybe in the Perth he might not play. But for me, this is the reason why Bashir bats at number 11 and bowls. Obviously, bats at number 11 is a weird thing to call it, isn't it? But because England Australia, sorry, are so low on pace bowlers, if they play the spin of Nathan Lyon, which they will, but the question is if they produce conditions that could suit Nathan Lyon and Nathan Lyon takes 10 wickets in the match, we will not forgive ourselves for not picking Bashir. And I think that is so possible. And the last time in Perth, I think I said this last episode, that the opposition, the away team, didn't play a frontline spinner or vaguely frontline spinner was the first game there for India. I think Hanuma Vihari batted at number 6 and bowled a bit of part-time off spin, whilst Nathan Lyon took almost 10 wickets at the other end, and Vihari couldn't match it. And I think that's why you've got to pick Bashir, even if he is not the perfect spinner yet. He's very far from it, but I can see Nathan Lyon taking wickets in that test. And if he takes wickets and we haven't picked a spinner, we've just picked Joe Root, we'll be gutted. And I think that's why we got to play Bashir, just in case the pitch starts to degrade. All of a sudden, it looks like it might be moving the way of Nathan Lyon. Bashir is going to be pivotal. So let's talk about the middle order. We said how crucial it's going to be, but here are the big matchups. It is Smith versus Root and Head versus Brook. Now, Head's been a little bit on the rocks recently in terms of form, and Brook is world class. As we've mentioned, that top three are going to struggle. However good the top three is, because it is Australian conditions, both pace seamy attacks are very, very good in green, fast bowling friendly conditions. It all comes down to the middle order for me. Yes, we might have a game where a Labuschagne or a Pope might get a big score, or a Duckett might get a big score. But the number 4 and 5s, they've just got to be absolutely ruthless. If you're going to win this series, one of Smith, Head, or Root and Brook need to be the top run scorer, and by quite some distance. I just think each team, one of 4 and 5, has got to be an animal in this series, and I think it will be. I could see it being Smith, I could see it being Head, I could see it being any of them. Okay, but 4 and 5 are going to be the crucial battles. But one that's just emerged from the team selection that I just gave is the battle between Nathan Lyon and Shah Bashir. If we do go down that route of spinning friendly conditions, it won't be in the first few days, but as I've said, this pitch could start to roughen up and become a little bit dry. If there's any spin in this surface, all of a sudden, Nathan Lyon and Bashir, who everyone said was probably, not going to play a huge part in this series, will become front and centre. It will be Nathan Lyon's absolute experience and undeniable brilliance versus a hypothetical Shah Bashir should be classed in Australian conditions. And if Shah Bashir can match anywhere near Nathan Lyon's level, that'll be a huge win for England. But that is a big matchup. And my next point is about this number 4 matchup, Smith versus Root. And I think there's a huge amount of pressure on one of them and not as much on the other. And you're gonna be thinking there's a huge pressure on Joe Root because he's not got 100 in Australia. But I think the pressure on Joe Root for this series is lower than it has been in the last two Ashes Down Under. He was the captain in both those series. He was also the focal point of the England batting team, of the batting lineup. He was the only man in there, other than maybe Alistair Cook at the start, who was world class. Now he's got the likes of Brooke right next to him, who everyone's expecting to have a brilliant series. Ben Duckett, who's probably in the World 11 as the opener. And then Ollie Pope's in the runs as well. Stokes at number 6, the New England captain, well, for 2 or 3 years now. Root's got a little bit less pressure on him. All right, he's not the only one that has to perform. He's not the only one with the ability to go out there and score huge runs in Australia. So that's why I think if you then flip the coin over, Steve Smith all of a sudden has got around him Marnus Labuschagne, who has been very much in and out of the side. His Aussie record in recent years is poor. He knows that. Khawaja is coming to the end of his career, has a pretty honking record in Australia for the last 3 years. Jake Weatherall, new man on his debut. Travis Head, who arguably hasn't been in his best nick in the run-up. So Steve Smith's got a lot of pressure on him. And I think Root's got a lot of the better network around him of world-class batters than I think Steve Smith does. So that's really interesting. But it's time for the combined 11. We're coming towards the end of the show. We've just got the combined 11 and the predictions to come. And I'm going to be really open and honest with this. This is the honest, unbiased English combined 11. All right. Number 1, Usman Khawaja goes over Zach Crawley. Just for clarification, everyone, it is the number versus the number. So it is 1 versus 1. It's not Usman Khawaja versus Ben Duckett. It's Usman Khawaja versus Zach Crawley. Okay, it's not Steve Smith and Root getting into the same team. It is number 4 or number 4. Okay, so number 2 is Ben Duckett. He gets in over Jake Weatherall. You can't really argue with that. Number 3 is a big call from me. Labuschagne or Ollie Pope. And I think that the amount of blistering form Labuschagne is in right now in the lead up to the Ashes, Labuschagne goes in at number 3 for me. I know Ollie Pope just hit 190, but regardless of that, I think I can really see Labuschagne scoring big runs in this series. Despite what I've said about the top 3 finding it very tricky in these conditions, I think Labuschagne could possibly find a way. Maybe more likely than Ollie Pope. Number 4, Smith or Root. You could pick either of them. You could pick Smith for his record in Australia. You could pick Root for his record in the recent years, which is just the best batter in the world, isn't he? You've got to pick Smith, though. So I don't know why I'm doing this. You've got to pick Smith because of his record in Australia. It's the first test in Perth. If it's a combined 11, Smith gets in. If you've watched the Cricket District 20 versus 1 debate, you'd know that I had to argue the fact that Steve Smith or someone wouldn't get into the Aussie combined 11. And I'm backtracking, I'll be honest. But number 5 is Brooke. He gets in overhead, just recent form, and Brooke, I think, will be sensational in Australia if he's in vaguely decent form. Stokes gets in over Green, Smith over Carey, and Stark is at number 8. This is, by the way, just also confirm, it is the first test teams that I produced earlier in the show, the 2 lineups going head to head. So Smith gets in over Atkinson. Jofra and Mark Wood are then the 9 and 10, and Nathan Lyon will be in at number 11. Jofra and Mark Wood getting in over both of Boland and Doggett, I think, is very fair play. So, to finish the show, which has been a good one, I've enjoyed just unleashing my Ashes thoughts, actually. Whether you've enjoyed it or not, I think it's been quite good fun. But, firstly, I'm going to give my prediction for the first ball of the Ashes, then my prediction for the first test, and then my prediction for the series. So, first of all, it's going to be either Jofra Archer or Mark Wood to bowl into Usman Khawaja. It's going to be right arm over the wicket to the left-handed Khawaja. It's going to be a good length, angle in, nip away. And Khawaja's going to play one of those shots where he doesn't really move his feet and he just follows it with his bat. And it's just going to be a play and a miss. So watch out for that. It will be coming across the left hand of Usman Khawaja. Right arm over the wicket. Possibly Mark Wood. but a great length just nipping away, unless they just go for the throat ball. It would be a very, very Ben Stokes way to open up with Mark Wood bowling a 96-mile-an-hour bouncer to Usman Khawaja to start things off. That'd be sensational. But that's my first ball prediction. In terms of the first test, Australia are going to bat first, and I think they're going to get a low score. I think it's going to be a nibbly surface, especially at the start, and England will run through them. And I think it could be quite a similar little situation that we saw against India. I think England are then going to get a slightly bigger score in their first innings, just get maybe a lead of about 40. But then Australia are going to go big in the third innings. I could see them maybe notching up a 400, leaving England about 350 to chase. And I reckon they'll do it. Unless it's a rank turner by that point and Nathan Lyon picks up 10 in the innings, I can see England chasing down something big in Perth to set the Ashes alight with an almighty first test. But the prediction for the series might not necessarily have that same optimism, because the final point of the show is that there are two possible series results between Australia and England. All right. Make sure, by the way, to leave a great review. I've really enjoyed the episode. I hope you have too. Review on Spotify, comment on YouTube if you're listening there. Unfortunately, we're not doing a camera today, which is a bit gutting. But these are my two Ashes predictions. It's either going to be Australia 5, England 0, or England 3, Australia 2. I really hope you've enjoyed the episode, everybody. Make sure to click follow all social media platforms. Fire me some Ashes questions and do what you want, really. Thanks for listening, everybody. And make sure to ask yourself, what is he on about? Cheers.